Um, hardworking. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Um, I'm just gonna wait a couple of more minutes to see if some more people will join us. I know that it's the new year and some people may still be in the holiday mood. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep, fine with me.
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you.
Very high. Like very high.
Sorry. Okay, let's get started. I was just sending the email to someone who, the link to someone who needed it. But I want to wish everyone a happy new year and thank them for joining us for the first open door of the year. We appreciate your presence and your time. Gonna get started. And speaking is Cindy Reed, community organizer with the East Labush Community Partnership. I just did welcome remarks. We're going to do the partnership overview as we usually do, provide some program updates. Our presenter is NHS Brooklyn, and then do our gift card raffle and close out the meeting. For the partnership overview, if anyone who not on this meeting does not know, the East Labush Community Partnership provides referral service to families based on their need. We often get calls about housing, employment, and immigration services, but it doesn't matter what the family's in need of. We do our best connected to the services based on need. We also coordinate various community events, connecting, again, families to resources and providing some fun activities. Just coming from the holiday, we enjoyed our annual gingerbread building party and toy giveaway with our great partners that we collaborated for those events. Now for updates, our first event of this year is our Herd at Home returning back. Our first event will be focusing on wellness and mental health. This will be providing a vision board workshop, but we will also be providing health and wellness stations. Stations include free massages, facials, also stress-related health screenings, and some other fun activities. So this is going to be this Saturday, so don't let the cold scare you. But it's this Saturday from 12:30 to 3 p.m., so it's not a lot of time, but a little time for us to get together and connect and set out our vision out for the year. It'll be taking place at Flatlands Reformed Church, located at 3931 Kings Highway, Brooklyn, New York, 11234. And I hope that you come out. I'll put the flyer in the chat once I'm done talking. I just want to encourage the residents to put their name in the chat so I could put you in for the raffle. And now up for our speaker, we have Tyrone McDonald. He is the Government and Community Relation Manager at NHS Brooklyn. It's a great partner of ours that we often refer residents to for assistance. Tyrone, you can take over. Thank you for being here.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, on this cold night. Cut my video there. Pleasure to meet you. Happy New Year to all. We made it through. My name is Tyrone McDonald, and I'm the Government and Community Relations Manager for Neighborhood Housing Services of Brooklyn. So I'm going to get started and share my screen. A minute here.
Lift up the rest. Oh Lord! Oh Lord! Every stranger!
All right, there it is. You know, sometimes when you have so much things on, you cannot find your... Hold on one second. There it is. Okay. So, all right, I was actually tasked to do a presentation. It says just cause. It should be good cause. I do apologize. It's actually good cause eviction. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Once again, Tyrone McDonald, Government Community Relations Manager, Neighborhood Housing Services of Brooklyn. Okay. We are a community-based not-for-profit organization. We've been around for 42 years. And it's our mission to actually provide resources to underserved areas. And we do this by concentrating on home ownership and housing preservation. All right. Many of our leaders who are board members are basically residents in the community. People have stakeholders in the community, people have business in the community, and so forth. All right. All right, just an overview of some of our programs so you know, get a comprehensive view of what we provide as far as housing and housing preservation, tenant support services, tenant education counseling if anyone has any issues regarding their lease, their rights, they're about to get evicted, they owe rent and they don't know where to turn. We provide counseling and referrals when needed. Regarding renters insurance education, I just want to repeat, neighborhood housing services, we're not in the business of selling insurance. That's not what we do. But we do go over renters and also homeowner insurance. As you know, in the past, in 2023, there were a number of fires within Brooklyn and also the city area. And many of those families got displaced, and many homeowners, many renters within New York City do not have renters insurance. So you had situations where individuals, were temporarily homeless, displaced. They lost their belongings, clothes, and had to rely on the generosity of their church, the Red Cross, and so forth and so forth. So we do try to encourage people to get renters insurance. Because that helps defray some of the costs in the event of a disaster were to happen, whether it's a fire, burglary, so forth and so forth. And we go over how, what are some of the coverage you should be aware of, how premiums are calculated and so forth. We try to get into some of the language to make it easier for you so you can understand what's going on. Well, first-time homebuyer education, we are a HUD-approved counseling agency, and that's one of our popular programs. Landlord training, which is actually a part of our homebuyer education, also housing preservation. We have a lot of first-time home buyers and also landlords who actually take that course as well. We did notice that it wasn't enough just to provide home buyer education. When a person becomes a homeowner, they have more responsibilities, such as, maintaining their home, such as taxes, property taxes, their mortgage, refinancing, repairs, choosing a contractor, energy efficiency, all of the above. And we do give regular workshops on these areas. And I have a calendar of lists. You can always go to our website just to check out some of our workshops. And you don't necessarily have to be a homeowner. If you think about becoming a homeowner, you just want to get a jump on these things, it's probably good to have. Mortgage counseling, we assist individuals who are facing foreclosure free of charge, as far as helping them save their home and get them out of foreclosure. And if they need free legal assistance, so somebody can represent them in court in the foreclosure case, we do that as well. Estate planning, we actually work with Grow Brooklyn. Our motto when it comes to estate planning is, you're not too rich or too poor to have it, to get your estate affairs in order. Estate planning is not just wills. It also covers things like healthcare proxies, which we'll go into, how, what type of arrangements you want for your funeral and other things as well, power of attorney and so forth. And we do work with Grow Brooklyn so individuals can actually get, a free will done, healthcare proxy and so forth. Not trust, because trust is a little bit more complicated. We do get a lot of questions about trust, but some of the basics. Financial education improvement, we give regular workshops on that. Disaster preparedness, and we do give workshops on that on a regular basis, and we'll have some more information on that. And our ever popular home maintenance training, which is a 7-week program, which teaches you how to do repairs yourself. Covers things like carpentry, learning how to install locks, install doors, tiling, wood framing, some basic plumbing, some basic electrical, and so forth. And we actually have it at the YMCA, located on Flatbush and Rogers, close to Brooklyn College. We have 3 offices. I'm in the Church Avenue office, but we also have an office in Canarsie, and we have a brand new office in Coney Island in 1923 Surf Avenue, which is across the street from the Cyclones. Okay. So on the topic at hand, what is good cause eviction and what is its purpose? Okay. Now good cause eviction went into effect on April the 20th. And it gives some tenants of unregulated, also known as market rate homes in New York City, new protections. Landlord of homes covered by good cause eviction requirements cannot end tenancy without a good cause reason, and tenants can use this law as a defense in court. Tenants can also use the law to challenge rent increases above a certain level if they're evicted for non-payment of rent. The law applies to eviction cases started on or after April 20th of 2024, meaning cases where a landlord first filed documents in court to begin a case on or after that date. Good cause eviction is enforced through the court, so tenants who wish to challenge to end their tenancy or have any questions about rent increase should refer additional resources listed below and seek legal counsel. Yeah, so the good cause eviction was actually a second part of the rent Reform Act, which was passed in 2019. In 2019, it was like a major New York State rent Reform Act. The problem with that act was that it primarily concentrated on affordable rent stabilized apartments, primarily, all right, and also rent control apartments. And if you didn't know, a rent stabilized apartment is an apartment which was actually built between 1947 and 1974, all right? It concentrated primarily on that because, as you remember at that time, which was not long ago, there were a lot of abuses. What landlords used to do at that time is that if a tenant leaves an apartment, they would something called a vacancy rate, in which they would charge 20% to the new tenant. And what will happen is if that apartment reaches a certain amount, roughly it was around 2,700 thereabouts, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was in that ballpark, that rent stabilized apartment would become market rate. They also used things at that particular time called MCI, which is major capital improvement, and ICI, which is individual capital improvement. Major capital improvement was basically some major repairs to your apartment. Let's say the landlord was repairing the elevators or repairing like some of the common areas. And many landlords would do minor repairs and actually use that as a means to also jack up the rent, so it can actually get to that amount, and so the apartment can actually become market rate. So they would do this as a form of displacement. But the problem was the 2019 laws primarily focused on rent stabilizing and rent control, leaving a lot of market rate apartments out. So hence the good cause eviction law came into being. Okay, now what is considered a good cause eviction? And that was a question that many people came up with. Now, a landlord may evict a tenant for the following reasons. One is obvious: non-payment of rent. All right. Whether you have a lease or don't have a lease, you have an obligation, a financial obligation to actually pay your rent. All right. So they can evict you for non-payment. All right. That's a no-brainer. Number two, violation of a lease agreement. For all those who are tenants, as you know, you have various agreements within the lease. Okay. All right. It can include things such as a whole lot of things. It can include things such as no pets. And even with pets, you do have some leniency. But let's say, for example, you're in a building with a no pet policy. You bring in a pet, and within the first 3 months, the landlord tells you about it, and the 3 months does not expire, they can actually start evictions on that. All right. Other things within the lease that you violate, as well. Engage in illegal activity, anything which is criminally related and so forth, that goes without saying. You can actually be evicted on that. Tenant being a nuisance. You're doing things such as like putting garbage like right out your front door. Let's say you're putting items in the hallway, which can cause a fire hazard and actually block people from exiting. All right. Consistently denying landlord entry to make repairs. All right. Let's say, for example, you have a leaky radiator, or there's some other issue that the landlord needs to repair, and you're constantly obstructing the landlord, from getting an apartment to make those repairs. You can actually be evicted for that. Also, if the landlord need the unit for themselves or a family member, the unit must be the primary residence of the landlord or family member. Not applicable if the apartment is occupied by a senior or disabled tenant. So people who are seniors and also disabled tenant actually protected if the landlord tries to evict them because they want to use that apartment, either to shelter themselves or a family member. Okay. Some other ones, all right? If the landlord chooses to demolish the property or if the city issues a vacate order, okay? All right, that goes with, that's pretty self-explanatory. Landlord plans to take the property off the market, okay? And tenant fails to agree to a reasonable changes to the lease if a written notice is provided 30 to 90 days before expiration of a current lease. All right, so, all right. So let's say, for example, your landlord provides you with the lease, and for whatever reason, you don't, there's some issues with it that you don't address, and you don't sign it. The landlord can actually initiate an eviction because of that. So those are some of the good cause evictions. All right, the landlord can evict you for. Now, one thing in the good cause eviction was there's certain rent increases, right? So now, under good cause eviction, a landlord cannot summarily just, let's say, for example, once your lease is about to be renewed, charge you, let's say, a 20% increase. Okay, landlord can't do that. All right. The reason being that, and the reason why they put this in, because during that time, many landlords is actually using rent increase is just a method of displacing people. So let's say, for example, a landlord, just wants to get like a higher paying tenant. Once your lease comes up for renewal, they'll probably, charge, have some exorbitant, some outrageous increases of knowing full well that you won't be able to pay it. Okay. And they would do this to try to displace you and get you out so you can get a higher paying tenant. Okay. So good cause law has rent caps to discourage landlords using exorbitant rent increases to displace tenants. Now, here's a formula for proper rent increases for local rent standard, okay? So, okay, hold on one second. Okay, so the local rent standard, LRS, equals the local rate of inflation is determined by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. All right, plus 5%. If the local rent standard exceeds 10%, then it is unreasonable. As of May 1st, 2024, in New York City's local rate standard was 3.82%. So New York City's current LRS is roughly 8.82% or 3.82 plus 5%. So any rent increase over 8.82% at this point is considered unreasonable. All right. So those are some of the caps that they give you. All right. So you have the local standard, which is actually defined by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You have to get bogged down by some of the numbers, but just know that, keep in mind that if the local rate standard exceeds 10% with a rental increase, then it's very unreasonable. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Now, good cause eviction landlord. Okay. The landlord must inform if whether or not a tenant is covered by good cause eviction upon the next lease renewal. Okay. So landlords must tell you whether or not you're actually covered by a good cause eviction. They're obligated by law to tell you. The landlord must provide a tenant with a 30, 60, 90-day notice, depending on the duration of their tenancy, if they plan to end their tenancy or grant a renewal. Okay, keep in mind, the 30, 60, 90-day notice is basically based on how long you've been a tenant. So if you've been a tenant for less than a year, the landlord has to give you a 30-day notice whether or not they're going to renew your lease. If you've been a tenant with that landlord, been renting from that landlord from between a year, all right, to 2 years, they have to give you a 60-day notice, and anything over 2 years, they must give you a 90-day notice. If the landlord is planning a rent increase of more than 5%, the tenant must also be given a 30, 60, 90-day notice, depending on the duration of their tenancy. Okay. Now, a good question is what properties are covered under good cause? Because I know there are a lot of concerns, particularly small homeowners have a lot of concern, some concern over good cause and who is actually covered. Okay. Properties with more than 10 units actually covered. Okay. So if landlord or if a landlord or landlords, so you know you may have more than one landlord because a lot of times, you know, you may have joint investors or joint owners in a property, own in total more than 10 units in New York State, e.g., if you rent a unit in a two-family home on Troy Avenue in Brooklyn, and the landlord owns a one-family in Queens, a three-family in the Bronx, a two-family in Yonkers, a three-family on Sutter Avenue, East New York, then you would be covered by good cause eviction. So those 10 units can be in one building, 10 units or more can be in one building, or it can be the sum total of all the landlord's property holdings within New York State. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay. What properties are not covered under good cause eviction? Properties with 10 or fewer units. All right. So let's say, for example, in East Flatbush, you have a lot of two-family homes, some which are owner occupied. They are not covered by good cause eviction. All right. So if somebody owns a two-family home, let's say somebody owns a two-family as an investment. Now, if in their total portfolio they own 10 units or less, then good cause does not apply to them. Or let's say you have a two-family which is owner occupied. Let's say the landlord lives on one of the units that is not covered by good cause eviction. Okay. If the property is owned by an LLC, which stands for Limited Liability Corporation, then each individual owner must own 10 units or fewer to qualify. Okay. In the case of an individual landlord who claims they are exempt from good cause, they must disclose all of their real estate holdings before the court. Okay. All right. Housing tied to employment and the employee is terminated. For example, a super. All right. So let's say, for example, you have a super in the building. All right. That super, their shelter is not covered by good cause because it's tied to their employment. If a tenant is subletting their apartment and they wish to claim it back, all right. So let's say, for example, and then subletting is basically when you rent it out to someone else, but you're not living in that apartment. So let's say, for example, I'm renting out an apartment, and let's say I get a temporary job in California, so I have to sublet it. Means I'm renting that out to somebody else. Now, the tenant who's in my current apartment right now is not covered by good cause eviction. All right, so they will not be covered by some of the the rights under good cause. All right. Properties where rent and evictions are regulated by state or federal law. For example, rent stabilized, as I mentioned, rent stabilized apartments built between 1947 and 1974, Mitchell-Lama, and rent control. You may have heard of Mitchell-Lama. Mitchell-Lama is actually a particular program in which landlords last about 30 years, in which they actually keep rents at a certain level, and they also get tax benefits from that. Okay. Also, I also want to know when it comes to rent stabilized apartments are actually regulated by the state agency, HCR, Housing Community Renewal. So they actually regulate that. They also regulate rent control apartments too, and also Mitchell-Lama. Properties regulated through state, federal, and government entities such as NYCHA, New York State Housing Authority, and place-based Section 8. So NYCHA is not covered by good cause eviction because NYCHA has its own actually rules when it comes to like evictions and so forth. So they're not covered by that. Okay. Also, homes in co-op or condo developments are not caused by good cause eviction. Homes operated by religious institutions, hotels, homes within hospitals, assisted living, and so forth. Properties built after January 1st, 2009, 30 years after the property was built, then good cause would apply. All right. For example, if a property was built on March 1st, 2010, then good cause would come into effect March 1st, 2040. Okay. So there's like a 30-year lag between, any property built after January 1st, 2019. Okay. Homes that rent for more than 245% of the market value, that's really exorbitant rents. For example, a studio apartment at $5,486,000 would not be under good cause eviction. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So just a little bit, because I know I covered a lot. All right. Just quiz time. All right. And you could probably put your answers in the chat. All right. So you have A, a hotel, you have B, a private apartment with 48 units, and you have C, a student dormitory. Okay. Now, which property would be covered by good cause eviction? You could probably put your comments in the chat. All right, I'm seeing B. I'm seeing B. Okay. I'm seeing B. B. Okay. Yes, that is correct. It'll be B, all right? Private apartment with 48 units. The reason being is that, all right, for something to be covered under good cause eviction, it have to be more than 10 units. So B would be covered by good cause eviction, all right? Yes, not hotels, all right? Because hotels are short-term rentals, and not student dormitories will not be covered because student dormitories are actually owned by a school, okay? Okay, that's correct. Next one, all right? Which property is covered by good cause, all right? And this may take like a little thinking, all right? All right, building A, owned by James and Sonia. So they jointly own it, that's 10 units, okay? Building B, owner occupied by Sonia, 2 units, okay? Building C, owned by James, 3 units, okay? So which actually units would actually be owner occupied? Actually, there's more than one answer, but go ahead. Okay, I got A. Okay, good, good. A. Anyone else? I got any daring people out there? A. Thank you very much for sharing. I'll give you a couple of minutes. All right, A and C. All right, from Gilda. Okay, A and C. A and C. Anyone else? A. All right. Thank you, Shawana. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to the answer for this one. All right. The people who said A or A and C, that is correct. Now here's the reason why. Okay. Now, according to good cause, the person has to own, units have to be more than 10 units. Okay. Now, in building A is owned by James and Sonia. Okay. James and Sonia. Okay. The reason why A will be covered under good cause eviction because let's look at how many let's look at James's real estate portfolio, how much real estate he owns in total. Okay, James owns 13 in total. Thank you very much for James. Okay, all right. Sonia in total owns 12 in total. All right, so the building A will qualify. All right, I'll go to building B. Now, owner occupied by Sonia, 2 units. It would not be covered under good cause eviction because it's actually owner occupied. Okay, it's actually owner occupied. Even though they do take the 2 units and look at her overall portfolio, but the property in which Sonia occupies would not be covered. Okay. Now go to building C, owned by James, 3 units. The reason being is that James in total owns 13 units. So definitely building C will actually be covered by good cause eviction. Okay. I know there was a few layers to this question that you probably had to think about it, but you did a very good job. Anybody who says A and C, you did great job in pointing that out as far as good cause eviction. Okay. All right. Small landlord exemption. Landlords are required to disclose to tenants during the eviction process all owners of the building. So let's say if someone if a tenant being taken to court for eviction, all right, the court the landlords must show all the owners and how and all the units that each owner owns within New York City, and also the addresses of that. All right, tenants to figure out what a landlord owns before proceeding. A good resource is who owns what, justfixit.org. I'm going to leave it up for a couple of seconds so you could probably either screenshot it or probably write it down. Okay. Tenants, if you have been served by a landlord to vacate your apartment and needs help to make sense and how to answer that, you can call NHS of Brooklyn or Housing Court Answers. And here's the info for Housing Court Answers. Okay. Before I close out, let me go. All right, just some additional resources. Here are some upcoming events we're having. Neighborhood Housing Services actually having. Applying for Housing Connect, we have this going to be on January the 30th. First time home buying on January 14th. Small landlord meet and greet. We're actually having a property tax and mortgage help day for any homeowners at our Canarsie office, landlord training on that day, and also another first time home buying on January 28th. So that. So here's some information on anyone's interested in estate planning. You can contact my colleague, Ms. Angela Davidson. It's 718-469-4679, or you can go to our website, nhsbrooklyn.org. You know, we help people with wills, power of attorney, living wills, healthcare proxy, and we do this in conjunction with Grow Brooklyn. Okay, some information on disaster preparedness. You know, we always encourage people to get your go bag. You want to probably download the app Notify NYC. I know people were probably glued to the TV watching the fires in California. You know, so have a plan, meeting place, and so forth. All right. You can also follow us on Facebook at NHS Brooklyn, Instagram at NHS Brooklyn, also X as well at NHS Brooklyn as well. Now, does anyone have any questions? Because I know I said a lot, but anyone has any questions regarding good cause eviction?
Question, Tyrone.
Go right
So
ahead.
if a landlord has a good cause eviction, can he just pack my stuff up and put a lock on the door and throw me out?
Absolutely not. All right, because that's called an illegal lockout. All right, in order for a landlord to evict you, they must go through the courts. All right. First, what a landlord has to do is they have to serve you a vacate order, not even eviction notice, a vacate order, meaning that, you know, you have, you know, X amount of days to vacate the apartment, whatever reason, non-payment, they're not renewing the lease and so forth and so forth. If by that time, you know, the landlord, the tenant is still there, then they have to, you know, serve you, you know, eviction paper so you can actually go to court and actually, it can actually be adjudicated that way. But they just cannot change the locks on you like that. If that ever happens, what you can do is you can actually call the precinct, call your local precinct, and the police will come and actually, you know, let you back in if that ever happens to you. But thank you for that question, Sydney. Any other question?
Next question. Can you explain on the right to increase the rent versus rent controlled or not rent controlled apartments? Does the landlord need to show proof, like has he made any repairs, or he put a sticker on my door that says I love you, and then all of a sudden raise my rent $100? How does that work?
All right, great question. Great question. Now, when it comes to rent controlled and also rent stabilized apartment, the increases are actually voted in by the Rent Guidelines Board. All right, the Rent Guidelines Board meet every year, and they vote on rent increases for rent control and also rent stabilized apartment. All right. So as I said, rent stabilized apartment are actually regulated by HCR, Housing Community Renewal, which is a state agency. So let's say, for example, like a landlord, even if they make repairs, there's a certain formula. I can't know off the top of my head, but you can either call Neighborhood Housing Services and we can connect you to HCR. there's certain form that they have to follow. So they just can't say, you know what, we repaired a common area, so we're going to charge you, let's say, X amount. This was actually reformed in 2019, as a result of the, major capital improvement and also ICI, because, a lot of landlords was abusing that in order to say they can actually raise rent, precipitously. So there's actually, I have a formula, and that formula is very technical, as far as how much they can rent it if they decide to do repairs either within your apartment or within that. So that's within, when it comes to some of the rent stabilized apartment is actually, and any rent increase is actually voted on by the rent guidelines board, and usually voted on 1 and 2 year leases. So that's how that does. So a landlord in a rent stabilized apartment just can't, they just woke up one day and say, I'm going to increase it 10%. No, they can't do that. If I answer your question properly.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions?
All right.
Someone asked, could you please touch on why a landlord would refuse to renew?
Okay. Well, from my experience, a landlord could refuse to renew for a number of reasons, right? A landlord may refuse to renew. For example, they may have a conflict with the tenant. Just from my experience, that's some issue they may not want to renew. In the past, I mean, before the good cause eviction, a landlord may not want to renew because they probably want to get a higher paying tenant within their apartment. A landlord probably may not want to renew because, let's say, for example, the tenant, probably had a history of paying late. So those are some of the reasons landlord may say, want to renew. Or landlord may want to not renew because they want to sell the property. Those are some of the reasons why, they want to renew. So regarding good cause evictions, always keep in mind that in order for them not to renew it, they have to have a good cause. And what some of the good causes, violation, of terms of the lease agreement, and it has and it has to be documented, and also they they must inform you. Non-payment of rent, being a nuisance, or let's say, for example, that unit, they plan to live there or put a family member in that unit. So those are some of the reasons why, under good cause, that they would justify them not renewing a lease. But good question, though. Good question. All right. Good question. Any other questions out there? And keep in mind, this law is actually new, and as I said, went to effect April of 2024. There's been like a number of real estate tenant laws which is impacting us. So you had the good cause eviction, and then recently you also had the broker's fee law passed by the city council, in which outlines that whoever hires a broker is responsible of paying the broker's fee. Because as you know, when it comes to finding an apartment, with Zillow and announcements you see on Facebook and social media, what happens is that a landlord would post an advertisement for an apartment. A tenant would call a number interested in the apartment, and then in the whole transaction, they would be, charged with a whole broker's fee. So, which is kind of unfair, So with the new law, whoever hires the broker's fee is responsible. So, let's say if a landlord posts an advertisement for an apartment, then they're responsible for, paying the broker, not that tenant. So those are some of the major real estate laws which actually just passed, in addition to good cause. And then you also had a law, and this mostly impact homeowners. It was a Supreme Court law in which ruled that when a seller is selling their property, the person buying the property is responsible for actually paying their broker. All right, so that's also a major change. Whereas before, it was a seller's responsibility of paying, their broker and also the buyer's broker. But now the person buying the property have to pay their own broker. So some of the three major, real estate laws, which was passed within the last year, which we're still reeling from. And, we're looking to see how is going to change like the market and everything, and how, because we're slowly adapting to. Yeah,
I have one more question.
sure.
How are tenants protected against what? Well, it's a lot of to say. It's in the
Sure.
chat.
Sure. Let me see. See, I can see it. Let me see if I can see the question. Or how are tenants protected against
Sorry.
retaliatory? Okay, evictions is good cause eviction, e.g., reporting for safe conditions or exercising legal rights. And are there penalties for landlord who file frivolous cases? All right. That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that. There is some protection. That's like a legal question I can't answer, but there are protections. Like on both sides, whether it's landlord or tenant, you just can't file just frivolous lawsuits regarding that, and you are protected for retaliatory. I have to get the exact law, for that, to answer that question. I don't know what the penalties are. I guess it depends on, whatever the judge outlines. But for that question is more legal. I have to get back to you on that. So I'm just going to put my email address, and please send that question to my email so I can actually pass it on to my colleagues and get you a proper answer with that. But there are protections, but I just can't cite the proper law for that. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine, Tyrone. We appreciate your time. Before I let you go, I just wanted to open up. Does anybody have any last burning questions? Ever hold your peace? Okay. Tyrone, thank you so much for your time and all the information that you shared today. Housing is such a big issue in our community, and this information was very powerful and helpful.
Not a problem. I'm always here to help. And NHS is here to help you whether you have tenant issues, home buyer issues, or homeowner issues. Thank you. Let me
Thank
stop
you.
the share.
Okay, I'm going to move forward with the presentation. Just a few more things. Okay, one second. I just want to remind you, if you just joining, some of you joined after. I was looking at the names in the chat as best as I can, and those who joined after this announcement was made. But residents, can you please put your name in the chat so I could put your name on the raffle wheel before we called it? So I'll give you 2 minutes to do that so that everyone has a chance to win the raffle gift cards that we raffle during this meeting. So I'll give you 2 minutes to put your name in the chat if you didn't get a chance to. Okay, I think I got everybody. Someone's just joining late, but 1 second. We'll be changing the screen. Can you see the wheel, everyone?
Wife doing it. You
Yeah.
understand? You got your daughter, your wife, and your daughter is doing it.
Yes.
My friend sent me this Zoom, but I told her, mother.
Okay, awesome. And I believe everybody's on that was able to listen to this meeting today. So I'm gonna click now. Okay. Miss Sade Sade, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Are you still on with us? I see that she's still in the meeting. Are you still with us? Okay, I'm gonna call another name. Mr. Gilbert, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, one more. Ms. Berlat, are you still here with us?
Hello?
Yes, you're still here with us?
Yes, I am definitely here.
Thank you for joining. Okay, transition to the last part of the presentation. Okay, so our next meeting is going to be on February 13th. Stay connected. If you find yourself in need of anything, needed resources or whatever, you can call 347-675-7810, or you can email us at ef@cpp.jccany.org. We encourage you to explore our website at eastflatbushpartnership.org and follow us on Instagram or Facebook at East Flatbush Partnership. I thank all of you for joining us tonight. Again, Happy New Year. I hope that the year has started off well for all of you and that there's many, many blessings in store this year for all of you and no delay to those blessings as well. Again, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Take care now.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.